Big, tough questions. Big questions. Anyone else really impressed by what they are? I'm going to remind you. Who am I? How do I live a meaningful life? How do we create a beloved community? Why do bad things happen? What is the afterlife? Who or what is God? I don't know about you all, but I am always inspired by our COA class. This opening ceremony makes me so excited to hear what they will say, what these amazing kids are going to say in the spring. They were going to teach us. They're going to be insightful and wise beyond their years. And I say this as a fact because that is what they always do. Some of us shy away from these questions because they're so big, but they dig into them. Some of us shy away from these questions, right? How often do we can stop and think about these fundamental questions that they explore so carefully? I just said the list. They're not easy, they're not obvious. But I was looking at them the other day, because there was a lot of prep for today, and it struck me. In addition to the depths of these questions themselves, each one opens the door to even bigger adjacent questions. Now, to get this out of the way, these questions, my side questions, they have been and they will continue to be explored through books and art and music and dance. They form the philosophical fabric of our lives. So, be warned, this morning, I can only tug at a few threads. So let's look at a few of them. Who or what is God? We just heard in our reading the most perplexing definition of God's name, which is what God said to Moses. So who or what is God is a fantastic question. But what about why is God? Why? Why has almost every, because I'm not 100% sure, why has almost every civilization on earth imagined divinity in some form? Why do we humans look at this world, the stars, the vastness of the universe, and seek meaning in it? From a strict biblical perspective, this is a foolish question, since God put the idea of God in our heads.
She's not allowed to
Even from that starting point, but especially from an atheist or an agnostic's point of view, the question itself sheds light on what it means to be human. St. Anselm, in the 11th century, defined God as that than which nothing greater can be conceived. In other words, humans can imagine something infinite and still ask, what is bigger than that? We can look to the beginning of the universe and still wonder, what came before that? It is profoundly human not to just live in the present, but in the past and also in the future, to imagine what we cannot know. And that very imagination allows us to conceive of God. So regardless of not whether God exists, the idea of divinity reflects the immense power of human creativity. Did we invent God? Did God invent us? In the end, what matters most is that we take the gift of introspection and use it to learn, to grow, and to love. So how about, why do bad things happen? And I'll let the COAers wrestle with that one. But back in the 1980s, I read a book by Harold Kushner called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And his premise is that we can never know why bad things happen, why a loving and good God would allow suffering. So the question becomes not why, but when bad things happen, because they will. When bad things happen, how will we respond? Another theologian, the Presbyterian minister Fred Rogers, yes, the Mr. Rogers, for those of you who know him, he taught us to look for the helpers. Don't dwell on the awful, he said, be part of the healing. When bad things happen, we can choose to lose faith, to rail against the world, to stew in our anger. But we can also choose to turn those powerful emotions towards compassion and action. The book of Job tells us that God is unfathomable, that the reasons for suffering are beyond our comprehension. So instead of demanding answers, we can decide to build a world where kindness, not cruelty, has the final word. Let's try one more. How do I live a meaningful life? So maybe, why should I live a meaningful life? This is actually a trick question, because how and why, in this sense, they're really the same thing. From a biblical and religious point of view, living a meaningful life means doing what we are commanded to do, to love our neighbor, to treat others as we would want to be treated ourselves, to welcome the stranger. And we do those things, our lives naturally fill with meaning and purpose, which becomes a reason to keep doing them. But here's the other question. Why is it so hard? It's hard because some people don't always seem to deserve kindness. It's hard because doing the right thing doesn't guarantee a good outcome. It's hard because what I might see as just and right may not be what you see. And yet, as hard as it is to live righteously, generously, and thoughtfully, if we don't, our world shrinks. It becomes smaller and dimmer, a more brittle place. These big questions and all the little ones they spark are like the cobblestones of the path we walk through life. Sometimes smooth, sometimes rough, sometimes laid out in beautiful patterns, and sometimes just scattered in our way. But here's the thing. We don't walk this path alone. We walk it with one another, with our families, with our friends, and our communities. We walk it with the wisdom of our ancestors and the curiosity of our children. And along the way, we keep asking, we keep learning, and we keep growing. So instead of always staring at our feet when we walk, trying to avoid the cracks in the path, let's remember to